Yo, what's up everybody? I am Legend, finally back from the daily uploads, and in today's video I'm going to be showing you how to EQ your rap vocals to get a better sounding vocal style. Coming right up, let's go. So really quick before I begin today's video, I do want to say this is another giveaway video. I will be selecting the third and final giveaway winner to win the Complete Control A25 MIDI controller by Native Instruments. Whoever specifically wants the Complete Control A25 MIDI controller to be able to make better beats, to play your sounds or whatever it may be. Remember, it's just a MIDI controller. It doesn't come with sounds, but if you want that for your studio, if you want that for your setup, leave a comment down below letting me know how it can help your music production game, what kind of beats you make, anything about the keyboard itself, so that I can choose you and enter you into the drawing to win the keyboard. And I will be selecting a winner after this video is posted. And now let's get on with the video. Okay, so basically I recently did a video on my channel how to record rap vocals. It was one of my most highly requested videos recently, and I kind of want to expound on that because I've done a whole bunch of different videos on how to record singing vocals, how to stylize them and things like that, but I want to go down the rap rabbit hole, if you will, and basically show you guys how to stylize your vocals. This is something that I always talk about in my reacting to subscribers music. In a lot of these rap songs, people, they have good delivery and they have good vocals and things, but their vocals are so dry, so there's no character, there's no style to their vocals. So in this video I'm going to show you how to basically EQ and style your vocals to get a more dynamic sound, to get something that sounds more like a character or some sort of your own feel to it instead of just a dry vocal. So we're here in Garageband, and this is a track that I recorded I think back in 2010 called Rise. It's one of my transition songs when I first started kind of transitioning into Legend. 21 guns salute, cause I'm a killer man. Just let me tell you the story about this young man who grew up to chase his dreams, become a legend. Grew up to chase his dreams, become a legend. As you can tell, the vocals are rather dry. I'm gonna mute that vocal because that's not the one that I went with. Told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up. There's literally, when I used to record back in the day, I did no plugins, zero plugins. Everything was raw. There was not even a reverb. Like, look at this. It's just noise gate, a high pass filter, compressor, and channel EQ, which I didn't even touch this stuff. I just selected a preset and it added a compressor to my vocal. I liked it and I just went with it. But I've turned everything off because I'm going to basically be starting from scratch. So what you want to do when you come in, when you rap your vocals, okay, it depends what kind of style you're going for. In rap vocals, you can be a little bit more lenient with how you EQ and how you stylize your vocals, because I think in singing it's a little bit more calculative that you have to be, if that's even a word, because you're singing and you want to make sure that what you're singing is not being too morphed into something that sounds unpleasant to the ear. Versus rap vocals, since you're just talking, you're not presenting any notes or anything like that, you're basically just talking to a beat. You have a little bit more leniency to what you can do with those vocals. So I've heard a lot of people throw on like a telephone filter, like some kind of really trebly Vox filter. Like, it just depends on your style. So I'm going to show you different ways to do that. Now, there are built-in plugins into GarageBand, but basically what you want to do, first of all, familiarize yourself with GarageBand. So you come down here, click on this knob tool next to the scissors in the top left, and then that'll bring up this whole menu down here. So as you guys can see, it brings up this menu down here, and then if you click on track, you'll notice there's a section there that has plugins here. You click plugins, and then this drops down all the plugins that you currently have on the track. Now, it may look like, oh, I can only add 4 plugins. No, that's not the case. When you highlight or go right here just beneath the track or just between each track, you can actually add a new plugin. A little trick, but this is how you get to your plugins. So I always start off with a noise gate to eliminate any background noises or noises in between my raps. You a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground so I could rise, become an icon. Anesthetic needle, yeah, God numb the pain like an anesthetic needle, yeah. Turn that down a little bit. Pain like an anesthetic needle. Yeah. Okay, 34 is about good. So I always put on a noise gate. After that, it depends what direction you want to go to. So there are different ways to do this, but first of all, I like to put compressors on any of my vocals, whether it's singing or rapping. Compressors are needed, vocal riders are needed to regulate the volume of the track and also gives it a little bit of warmth. So what I do is I come in here and first I'm going to add a Waves vocal rider. This is a plugin that you do have to purchase. There will be a link down below if you don't already have one. I talked about how to use it in previous videos. Let's turn the music down. This is on a vocal. So I'm going to do a fast attack speed since, you know, I'm rapping very fast and I want the vocal rider to correct the volume very fast instead of it fading in and out and stuff. So I turn the sensitivity to fast here, and then you can even mess with that and turn this up or down, but I'm just going to leave it here for now and see what happens. And then we have our range, how loud you want it to go, how low you want it to go, and then this is going to basically move around in between these knobs to regulate that volume.
If I told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground so I could rise, become an icon now.
Versus if I didn't have it on.
My enemies and I take a bow. The show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but
okay, so I recorded this pretty loud, so it's not really moving too much. So these vocals, they're not the best vocals because when I was recording back in this time, I didn't really know too much about dynamic range in terms of volume. I knew what there was to know, but I was still in my infancy, kind of. So it does peak in some parts and it does clip in some parts. So what I'm going to do is add a compressor, and it's already here. There's a built-in compressor in Garageband that you can add, but I have a better one with Waves, and I'm going to be adding Waves CLA2A for warmth. This is one way to add character to EQ your vocals, or to add warmth. I'll say that, to mess with the volume. It doesn't really EQ. So we're going to turn the gain up a little bit and turn peak reduction down and see how that affects the track.
Told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow. The show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but I'm not conceited, nigga, I believe now. And if you really want to know just how I feel,
and you want to just play around with these settings until you get a sound that sounds pleasing to your ear, so that it's not fading in and out too fast, it's not too overbearing, but it's not too quiet. So these two are the two main things that I use to kind of boost a vocal. Let's turn the gain up and the peak reduction down. That should give it a little bit more grit, I think.
Told you was,
oh yeah, that's way too much grit. So let's turn this down.
It was a story about my life.
And then we'll go to vocal rider. We'll actually turn this down as well.
Life, how I came up from a graveyard.
Still way too loud.
Graveyard, I was.
We'll come to CLA2A and then we'll just turn the gain down to 40, peak reduction down a little bit.
I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow. The show must go on, stadium crowds.
Now that might still sound a little bit too loud, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some more different effects and different plugins to this to kind of give it a feel that allows it to fit in more with the track itself. So you don't have to worry about it being too loud for right now. So one thing that I know a lot of people can do, you can use a bunch of different tools, but one thing that I swear by is the CLA vocals right here. And you can also use any kind of built-in Garageband, you know, plugins. There's a effects pedal, there's different things you can use here, and it'll appear as a menu down here, or you can even mess with the EQ itself right here. Basically the logic and everything still remains the same. You want to just mess with the different levels, the highs, the mids, and the lows, to get a sound that you think characterizes your voice the best, or gets a feel of what you're trying to do without being too much in the bass or too much in the highs, because then it's very unpleasant. So I'm just going to come in here. We got CLA vocals, and I'm gonna just select a preset. Let's do it while it's playing so you can hear the difference.
Told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies,
I kind of like that.
The show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but I'm not conceited, nigga, I believe.
Oh, this sounds so good already. So let's mute the track and show you what the difference is. So just adding this, the compressor that I have, the CLA2A, but you can add the built-in compressor if you want to, and then the CLA vocals after that. This is without CLA vocals.
If I told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself.
Right? But then I just slapped CLA vocals on there and selected the Start Me Up preset, and this is what it sounds afterwards.
If I told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground.
So it's already adding a slap delay, so that's a delay that comes like right after you're saying whatever you're saying, which is really good. A stereo, which kind of spreads your vocals. The reverb is tight, so it's again, when I say to add reverbs and delays to your vocals to get them to sit better in the mix, I tell you, like, that does the magic for me every time. But in adding a reverb especially, you don't want it to sound like you're in this giant auditorium. So a tight reverb in this case would be very beneficial, in my opinion, for a rap, because you're not trying to sound like an ambient rap. It's just a rap. So
I could rise, become an icon now.
Also adds another layer of compression. That's a spank, but let's see what it sounds like without the spank.
I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up.
I like it with the spank. The treble
off the ground, so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies.
So this is with no treble. Notice how there's a lot more bass.
About my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down.
So I'm gonna add the top treble and turn it up a little bit, like it says here. And this is where adding a little bit of highs or a little bit of lows, or turning down the lows, turning up the highs, can really start to characterize and develop that sound that you're trying to go for, especially for a rap.
So I had to pick myself up off the ground, so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow.
So I like that sound. Let's see with the instrumental.
The show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but I'm not conceited, nigga, I believe now. And if you really want to know just how I feel about these niggas leaving me, not a big deal.
I might have to re-release this track, man. I don't know. But anyway, that's basically what you're doing, is you're playing around with the highs, the lows, the mids, adding different effects to stylize your vocals, to characterize them, to get them to sound different and not so dry but not so dramatic as well. I think that's how a rap should sound. I mean, unless you're trying to really go for a theatrical feel, which is totally fine to add some crazy stuff, but in most cases, you know, this is what you want to do. I'm gonna turn off CLA vocals and show another compressor that I love to add, which is the Abbey Road vinyl. And you guys have seen this. It looks very confusing, but I promise you it's not as confusing as it looks. You just turn knobs and then see what they do, and then you learn how to use it. And I know a lot of people will be like, oh, that's the stupidest way. No, that's literally how you learn. That's actually how you learn different languages too. You just start saying stuff, you say it wrong, but then you figure out what it actually means. Anyway, this is one of my favorite plugins, probably my favorite plugin, because it acts as a compressor. It acts as like a texture generator, I guess, because it adds grit, it adds pops and crackles like it's playing on a vinyl record. So this is another way to add character to your vocals, to stylize your vocals, to make them not sound so dry. And so we'll take this off. We'll show you what it sounds without Abbey Road.
Cause I'm used to deception, I'm used to lies. I just take it all in so I can utilize this.
Oh, that's so peaking. So in this case, we want to get the output, I think, and turn that down.
Bow, the show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but I'm not conceited now, so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow. The show must go on, stadium crowds.
Matter of fact, I'll turn off CLA 2A, that compressor, and then we'll just mess with the compressor function in Abbey Road and see.
Way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground, so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow. The show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but I'm not conceited, nigga, I believe now.
And then you can mess around with the different generations of the machine here, the different types of turntables, different types of cartridges. Some of this stuff I don't, like TG does, I don't know what half of this stuff means, but I do know that it changes the sound, so that's all that matters to me personally. You just click, if it sounds the way you want it to sound, then you leave it. If you doesn't, then you turn it back off, and then it's that simple. Again, you don't have to understand all of what this means. If you just click it and it does what you want it to do, it makes a sound that you want it to make, or that you think sounds cool, boom, there you go. I mean, I'm self-taught. That's how I figure out most of the stuff that I know. And I know people are gonna have a field day with me on this one, but this is how I do things. So
told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow. The show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but I'm not conceited, nigga, I believe now. And if you really want to know just how I feel,
there's a lot of distortion there, but it's okay. So I'm gonna turn on CLA vocals to kind of help out this plugin, but also I want to go here with this dead space and see what these sounds do. So you can hear, this is one thing that I like to do with the Abbey Road plugin, because it's a very detailed plugin. Like, it adds a tiny amount of detail to your vocals, but the detail completely like changes and morphs your vocals in a way that's not immediately like you can hear the difference, but you can tell the difference when it's not there. So if that makes sense, it's just a very tiny, minute detail. So what I like to do is get some dead space in that vocal, put it on loop, and see the differences. Turn your volume way up and then see the differences that happen once you start changing cartridges and stuff. So this is what we're messing with here. Prince sounds like a more clean sound, but still got that crackle in it. We're on DJ turntable, and that's AR turntable. AR is a little bit more dirty. So if you want to add a dirty feel to your vocals or to your track, if you put this on a track, you can do that. But I want to go with DJ. As far as cartridge goes, this is MM, MC, and DJ. I'm going to go with MM, and from here we can add some noise, maybe even some crackle. This is basically dirtying up my rap vocals. So this is in a way stylizing my rap vocals to sound just a little bit more gritty, because this is a really gritty song. This is a really heartfelt song that came from straight from my heart, and it was like trying to prove a point. So the grit, I want it to be there. What is this? Density of the noise, I'm supposing, and then some clicks. Okay, the input will turn up, output will turn down for a little bit more grit, I think, and I want the drive to be up a little bit. But let's see how this sounds from here.
Told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow. The show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say.
Now notice when I turn this drive up, it really distorts those vocals. Is another great way to add character and style to your vocals.
Hey, wow, but I'm not conceited, I believe now. And if you really want to know just how I feel about these,
I'm gonna turn it up to like 25 and then turn on CLA vocals.
Told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground so I could rise.
And then mess around with the wow and flutter maybe just a little bit. So let's turn up the depth and just go extreme, show you what it does.
Rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a barrel. The show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but I'm not conceited.
Okay, and the flutter.
Deception, I'm used to lies. I just take it all in so I can utilize this weakness as my #1 strength. All the way to the top, cause I'm on the brink of success and I won't forget the little people.
Okay, so this is a really distorted sounding, gritty vocal, and that is the exact point that we are trying to go for. We're trying to characterize the vocal to match the instrumental. The instrumental is real gritty, it's real strong, it's real in your face, and I want that whole feel to match what the vocal is doing. So in that, we are adding grit to the vocal. We are adding a compressor to the vocal that kind of grinds it up. We're adding the CLA vocals, turning up the treble, setting this to top, turning down the bass so that it's a little bit more punchy in those mids and highs, but not so trebly that it's piercing the eardrums. You don't want so much treble that it pierces the person's eardrums. That's never a good thing, I promise you. But a little tasteful amount can really help your grit or help whatever you're trying to achieve. So we did that. We added the compressor here, and then we also did a little bit of compression on the Abbey Road, and we had the delays and all that stuff set in. So this is what it sounds like before I did everything.
Told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground, so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow, the show must go.
And then here is with those two effects, CLA vocals and Abbey Road.
Told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground, so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow, the show must go on. Stadium crowds, some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but I'm not conceited, nigga, I believe now. And if you really wanna know just how I feel about these niggas leaving me, not a big deal, cause I'm used to deception, I'm used to lies. I just take it all in so I can utilize this weakness as my #1 strength. I lost all my friends, but I stay strong. I'm unbroken like a Demi Lovato song. And when people come to ask me what's wrong, I tell them that I'm right where I belong. Cause it's part of God's plan that I suffer.
Let's go to the third verse. I love the third verse.
I'm out to change the whole world, could you handle that? Lift up the whole globe, put it on my back. And yes, the goal is stadium status. Bear it all for the people like my name was Atlas. You know what the world needs? Not a Bentley or Maserati.
And then I got my background vocals. I kind of want to throw those in there too, because these background vocals are killer.
I'm out to change the whole world, could you handle that? Lift up the whole globe, put it on my back. And yes, the goal is stadium status. Bear it all for the people like my name was Atlas. You know what the world needs? Not a Bentley or Maserati. They need somebody on a mission and to listen to the struggle and the pain and to speak life and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
So one thing that I do want to point out, when you are EQing your rap vocals and mixing and all that stuff with your rap vocals, this is the next thing that I would suggest. I mean, well, you should have did this probably earlier on, but you want to put a de-esser in there to fix up all those, because this last verse has a lot of S's in it, if you noticed.
On a mission and to listen to the struggle and the pain and to speak life and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise.
There's a lot of S's in here. So that's one thing that can affect your vocals, is a lot of S's can kind of get annoying after a while. So you want to use a plugin, Sibilance or Manny Marquin Triple D's. Those are two of the main ones that I use. I'll just go ahead and use the built-in de-esser, Dynamics and de-esser, because a lot of you may not have the money to use like any of those like paid applications. So the built-in de-esser, and so we'll just mess around with this to see what it can do.
Life and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
Now the thing that I hate about this built-in de-esser is it doesn't have a visual representation of where the S, like the strong hertz frequencies are of the S that you're taking out. So you kind of have to like play around with it, kind of like you do in Triple D's, but I like the interface better. But here you just mess around with it till you find that very harsh S sound, and then the suppression is how much of that S sound are you going to take away, how much of that frequency are you going to subtract. Right now it's on negative 10 decibels. Now I just have to find that harsh S frequency, so we'll loop this right here.
And the pain and to speak life and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
I think it's between like 400 and 1,000.
And the pain and to speak life and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
Again, this is the built-in de-esser in Garageband in Logic. I will show you one that I actually do like to use because I can hear the frequency. Like, it's better to hear what you're taking out than just to kind of guess. So Manny Marquin Triple D's lets you solo those frequencies. I'm going to bypass the D harsher and the D boxy and just go straight to the de-esser.
And the pain.
So if I click the frequency button, it's going to show me the frequency that I have selected that I want to subtract from.
And the pain, and to speak
Ooh, that's
life,
harsh.
and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise.
Right there. I want to, ooh, that kind of cuts through my ears. I do want to take that off a little bit. So let's go right, let's try here and see how that works.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
Kind of muffle the vocals a little bit. So what I would want to do is add a little bit more treble now, because we just took out a little bit of that treble, taking away the S. So
and the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
And Manny Marquin is good for more than just a de-esser. It's got a de-harsher and a deboxy in here. This is why I love this plugin. You get 3 in 1. I don't really see any other plugins that have a de-harsh or a deboxy type thing. Like, not simple like this. Maybe they're out there, but you have to really like finagle it. It's not set in stone like this is the harsher, this is the, like, you know. We're gonna go with the harsher.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations.
And you want to find the harsh frequency, a frequency that just sounds very unpleasant to your ears.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
I'll say probably about right there for me.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
And then deboxy as well.
And the pain, and
basically you want to find the boxy sounding frequency. Like you're putting your phone inside of a cup, like you're putting your phone inside of a cup, and it sounds like that. So
and the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
I don't really hear much, honestly, so I'll just turn it up just a little bit. And this is the thing, you don't want to overdo it and take out too much, because you're going to muffle stuff, you're going to take out very important frequencies. I think this is just like a little bit of a tiny adjustment that you want to do, nothing dramatic, unless your stuff sounds that bad.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise.
Okay, now with the music.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion. And the
start from the beginning.
I'm out to change the whole world, could you handle that? Lift up the whole globe, put it on my back. And yes, the goal is stadium status. Bear it all for the people like my name was Atlas. You know what the world needs? Not a Bentley or Maserati. They need somebody on a mission, and to listen to the struggle and the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
I like the way that sounds. I really do like the way that sounds. So we have our de-essers, we have our de-harshers, deboxies, we have our little Abbey Road vinyl to add some character, add some grit, CLA vocals. There are many different plugins you can use. These are just examples of ones that I would typically use without going too overboard. If you want to get like really heavy in effects, you could do something like CLA effects, or there are also built-in effects in Garageband by itself. If you go to Apple, they have all these different things here, or just here, the amps and plugins, the delay, distortion. Let's do the channel EQ here.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations.
So this is the channel EQ. This is like a visual EQ. This is one that I really like to use because I feel like it's simple. The left side is the lower frequencies, the right side is the higher frequencies. So if you drag it down, you're subtracting. If you drag it up, you're adding.
And the pain, and to speak life.
Ah, there you go, adding grit.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations.
Some people, when they rap, when they record their rap vocals, they like to add a lot, or they like to take away a lot of the bass and have this really trebly sound. And for rapping, I think that's fine. So in that case, you would want to come in here and drag this all the way down, or however down you want to, and it gets a really trebly, like telephony sounding sound. I know a lot of SoundCloud rappers that do this.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations,
make it not so
nations
dramatic.
To levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion. And the pain,
that's like a telephony effect.
Life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion. And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations.
Way too much treble.
Nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion. And the pain.
So what I love to teach is just play around with it yourself. There are no rules to this. I mean, there are rules, but some of them obviously are meant to be broken, and some of them is up to taste. So in this case, this is like a really telephony sounding sound. I wouldn't personally do this, but for other people that like this particular sound, you can go ahead and do it.
And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion. And the pain, and to speak life, and to change situations, nations to levitation, not demise, but to rise to the occasion.
I'd probably do something like that. Now let's hear it from the beginning.
If I told you a story about my life, how I came up from a graveyard, I was way down, so I had to pick myself up off the ground, so I could rise, become an icon now. Step to my enemies and I take a bow. The show must go on, stadium crowds. Some of y'all look at me and they say wow, but I'm not conceited, nigga, I believe now. And if you really wanna know just how I feel about these niggas leaving me, not a big deal, cause I'm used to deception, I'm used to lies. I just take it all in so I can utilize this weakness as my #1 strength, all the way to the top, cause I'm on the brink of success, and I won't forget the little people, guiding them the pain like an anesthetic needle.
So to me personally, this sounds really good. I would be happy with this. I'll probably play around with it a little bit more to get a little bit less distortion. Because again, my source audio is not that great since everything is clipping. This is how you would EQ, how you would add different effects, how you would stylize your rap vocals to get a more personalized feel with your raps, to get a more personalized sound, to sound different and not just have dry rap vocals. So yeah, don't forget to leave a comment down below if you want to win the keyboard. And that's it for today's video. If you guys want to know more about rap stuff, leave a comment down below. As always, stay legendary. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.